Some Thursday thoughts for you on the New York Liberty. Get you ready for not just the season ahead, but Jackie Powell and Madeline Kenny will be joining you tomorrow. Just some impressions I saw, and I want you to hear a little bit from Jonathan Kolb, the general manager as well. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday to you. I am Howard Megdal, welcoming you to Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Over 340,000 of you showed up in April alone, the way we show up for you 6 days a week. So excited about what we have coming your way. A lot of special things as the season is almost upon us. You will get live look-ins at every single site in the WNBA from all of our beat reporters over at The Next. If you want to support that work, go to thenexthoops.com and sign up. $9 a month or $72 a year. You get over 100 reported pieces, all of our podcasts just sent right to your email. If you care about the league and the way it's covered, sign up today, thenexthoops.com. So this weekend, we shared a little of the short with you. Jackie Powell and I headed over to Liberty, what turned into Media Appreciation Day. And of course, a lot of the attention focused on our ability or lack thereof to play basketball. Had a really good time with it. And again, massive shout out to Brian Flannery and the Liberty Media team, who not only do the work every day to help us tell those stories, but also in a thankless profession, a lot of times they make it feel to us like we're seen and we matter. It means a lot. So really grateful for that opportunity. We also had 40 minutes to chat with Jonathan Kolb. And, you know, again, it's one of these things where like it's a win for everyone, right? Our stories are better because we can get a deeper understanding. No one's playing games or making it hard to get questions answered or trying to figure out how to tell those stories. And so it was really worthwhile. There's a lot to get into. And again, tomorrow you're going to get the full story from the great Jackie Powell, Madeline Kenny, who does exceptional work covering women's sports and specifically the Liberty among them over at the New York Post, a colleague and a treasured friend for a long time. They're going to be there to talk to you about Liberty. But a couple of things that I got to when I wrote about it in the 9 newsletter this week that I thought were worth highlighting. So I'm going to go ahead and let you hear on a couple of questions, one that I had for Jonathan, one that Jackie Powell did, and then we'll be back to talk more about some of those answers. Back with you in just a moment. I'm Howard Megdal, and you're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. I can tell you that's certainly been the case at the 9 and the Next and Locked On Women's Basketball. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, that's artificial intelligence, not Allen Iverson, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. So go to Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Locked On Women's Basketball is also brought to you by Game Time. And there is nothing like the atmosphere of a WNBA or NBA playoff game. And right now, the NBA, which is the men's version of the Women's National Basketball Association, men playing professional basketball. It's a thing now. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena. And with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and the last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Howard Megdal here, back at Locked On Women's Basketball. And so I want to turn the floor over to, I guess, us in the past. And I want you to hear a little bit of Jonathan Kolb, what he has to say about the overall atmosphere here at camp, talking specifically about getting more efficient, which is an interesting thing from a team that was so good offensively, and talking to our Jackie Powell a little bit about Natasha Cloud. So back after this, but first, let's hear from Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan. Piggybacking off of that, the practice facility, what kind of message does it send? That the kind of investment, you said earlier that the Liberty are trying to be a player-first organization. So, and obviously a lot can happen in the next few years, but what kind of message does it send about the investment and what kind of place that Brooklyn will be a place?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just says we're here and we're not going anywhere. And that's Joe and Clara, right? That's them. And like I said, I'm just incredibly humbled by the greenlighting this facility. The part of it that I think is incredibly special is the design elements from our players. I think that's really important. I can sit up here all day and say we're going to have this type of tech and we're going to have this type of recovery and all of these spaces. It doesn't matter. I'm not the one that's really utilizing it. I just thankful to have a window, but for it to be designed by our players for their different needs, I think is also going to help us future-proof this for the next iteration of Liberty roster, right? We want this to be incredibly sustainable and special for everybody that walks through those doors. I'm also just very excited to continue to get into the community. That's a new space in Brooklyn for us. So for us to further our roots is always a great opportunity, and we're really looking forward to that, trust me.
We'll take a few more follow-ups, starting with Ben.
Just one. Can you just confirm Leo, Niara, and Marine are you're expecting them to play Eurobasket?
We are, yes.
And then bringing Sonia and Andrew in, I guess what have you observed from them so far, and what impact do you hope that them have on the franchise?
I'm glad you asked that. Something that I don't think has been talked about, and I didn't think it really would, are those two additions. They're really major for us. First, I'll start with Sonia, and then I'll go to Andrew. Sonia is an elite basketball mind. She's somebody that has a wealth of experience at the collegiate and NBA level. And she's somebody we tracked for a little bit. And when she made it known that she would like to come to the WNBA, we were proactive with our pursuit. I think Sonia is going to help us in many ways on the floor this year, on the offensive end of the game, as well as tactical situations. There's a question earlier about how to get better. I think those are some areas to get better. And so I'm excited to see her voice in our locker room, her voice on the court, and seeing some of what she's doing now in practice live during gameplay. Andrew Wade is somebody that I think is going to be a game changer for us from a development lens. As we're talking about expansion and sustainability, it is vital that we develop our players in a way that can lead to winning plays on the floor. And to do that, we need somebody that is really intentional. We need somebody that is focused on short-term and long-term goals for our players and is in regular communication with those players on how they're doing in those metrics. And so I think his addition is going to be paramount for our success, not only for this season, but for the future seasons.
Go over to Howard.
Jonathan, I'm glad you raised, I'm not sure if we can hear it.
Sorry.
Okay, sure. Yeah. There we go. I'm glad you raised this because, as we know, this is a copycat league. And so the all-time record for most attempts at the rim or beyond the arc of any team in history is you guys last year. And so we obviously saw the builds are a little different, whether it's LA or Atlanta, but in both cases, two coaches who were right at the top of getting those looks are brought in from different programs to do it. So with an eye on that, is Sonia being brought here, somebody who obviously has made this a point of emphasis wherever she's been, from MIT onto the NBA side, a critical part of it? And then just related to that, do you want that number to go up? Do you feel as if, in the same way that the league is pushing on things like practice facilities and player experience, that this is another area where there's room to grow for the league as well?
On court.
Yes, correct. And specifically just the analytics of where you get your shots.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's here. You're going to see a lot of pace, a lot of space. You're going to hear that a lot around the league. It's here, and I think it's going to create variability game to game, because you're going to have teams that are taking more threes and trying to prioritize spacing, and what that can lead to are nights where someone is really hot and it's going to carry them over. And I think that's really exciting. Again, it's not new. You've seen this on the men's side of the game, and it's here now in our league. Carl Smesko, you got Lynn in LA, like it's here. And so I'm excited for it. And I think it might also change the value on the archetype of player. I think that is something that you're going to see evolve. It's already in process now, and it's going to continue. So no, and to answer your question about us, yes, we want more. And so we want to lean to that. We do not want to stay the same. I think we've got excellent downhill pressure this year. That's going to really open things up for us. I think the potential of a Marine with Vallejo spaced is going to put teams in decision-making mode, and we want to get teams to get into rotation. And so, no, I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out on court.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to, I guess, the culture of this team that you guys have established, when Stewie was welcomed to New York over 2 years ago, it seems wild that it's been over 2 years ago, she spoke a lot about sacrifice. So I'm just curious how you think the team's culture is positioned to welcome a new veteran like Natasha Cloud into those very specific expectations and to get her to buy.
Yeah. Our culture is centered around sacrifice, because I should have said this earlier, and I regret not saying it earlier, but I said what I learned about winning. It's paramount that sacrifice is at the forefront. You need everybody playing with and for one another. You've heard me say that before. I think our team last year did that, and we got to where we wanted to be. When we talk about Tosh Cloud, and I said this earlier, she is a giver. She gives energy. She is fully bought in. Her voice carries, and it's something that I think, quite honestly, was needed. I think her voice is going to take us to another level. In terms of buy-in, there is zero concern about that. I think Tosh has actually said this on record, that she wants to get our players shots. She wants to learn our players and put them in positions to succeed. She wants to heighten our defense, at the other end there. And I think we're getting a very motivated Natasha Cloud, and one that is motivated not individually, but collectively. She wants to be here. She wants to play with these players, and these players want to play with her. It's a really special place to be. I would say that the opening of our camp to this point, obviously I'm missing this part of it right now, has probably been the best since I've been here from a chemistry standpoint, and Tosh has been at the center of that.
Just to follow up on Tosh, but I'm just curious from like a basketball standpoint, how you see the dynamic between her and Sabrina sharing kind of backcourt duties, and both can play on and off the ball. What do you kind of envision that might look like?
For sure. I think we want to be careful not to shortchange what Sabrina did last year when the ball was in her hands. It's a massive priority for us to continue to have the ball in Sav's hands. She's taken leaps as a decision maker thus far in camp. It's been really exciting to see. I think she's poised, if she continues this trajectory, to have a very special season. Tosh is here to amplify that. Tosh is here to help with our pace. She's here to get into the paint and to help spray that ball out. And I think if you went and you looked at backcourt partner opportunities for Sabrina, there aren't many better than Natasha Cloud. That's how we see it. And I think that they already have that relationship built from Unrivaled. So we've kind of sped up that introduction process. And I think that'll carry us far.
This year, have you guys taken any different kinds of measures or had conversations about player safety this season in a manner that you didn't in past years?
Yeah, I think we have in past years. I think we were correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were the first team to employ a full-time security. And we did that entering 23. We've had an additional security member this year, and we're going to continue to try to lead in that category. It's really important. With more media coverage comes more visibility, comes more opportunity for unfortunate events to happen as well, right? So we really want to guard against that and just make sure that our players feel safe and they feel taken care of so that they can just focus on basketball at the end of the day.
Over to Andrew. Yep, sorry.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Jonathan. Good to see you, JK. Wanted to ask you first how the off season was for you personally in terms of anything that you enjoyed doing and how that off season went for you. And any other move from any team in this wild off season made you go wild the most?
Well, the first question, no off season. That's the season, right? So it was really exciting to just get right back to it and try to envision what this team could look like on paper, and then actually go out and execute that. In terms of moves, I think there's so many around the league, and that's what I was alluding to when we talk about league-wide storylines. You look at just going through it, Atlanta, right? They kind of zagged and they went with two bigs, and that's going to be really fascinating, especially with Carl being there. Really excited to see what they look like. You've got Sloot back in Chicago, which is, something that I think is special for Sloot, and I think them bringing Tyler over there and the roster build up that Jeff has done has been great. Indiana, doing what they did. So there's not like one move that I think is like a wow, but I just think this league has gotten so much better. And that's going to mean you've got a lot of great basketball every single night, and that's something to be excited about.
Hey, Jonathan. Two-part question. Just the one draft pick this year, Ajikane, what you see in her, where do you think she'll be in a few years? And then the second question, obviously, 30 minutes trying to get a new CBA, can negotiate with players or sign anyone. How does that affect the players you have rights to overseas, and how you communicate with them?
Great question. So first of all, we're really excited about that draft pick. It's something where you look at a player like a Marine Fatooks we took in the third round not too long ago, right? You just see that development. We're in a league group, obviously, that doesn't have a development league. And so in a way, we try to use overseas basketball to kind of lead that development for us. And we continue to monitor and check in as appropriate. So in terms of where she'll be in a few years, you're looking at an elite rim protector. She's very raw offensively right now. We want to see how that projects in the future. But it's a player that, when you look at asset management and draft picks in our league, you're all going to see it really soon. Waivers, right? It happens. So from an asset management perspective, we like to stash those picks in late rounds. Sometimes it's domestic and we bring them in for camp probably a year later, and sometimes it's international, and we really wait on that until the time is right. Time right can mean when the player's ready, and also means when we have a need. And when those two things meet each other, that's when we bring that player over. In terms of how we communicate with them, we do regular check-ins. We try to be as communicative as possible. I think it's important that they know that this is a place that is an option in the future, and it's played well for us. Can you remind me if there's a second part of that question?
Yeah, how does that communication relationship affect the international players if they walk out?
That's a good question. I mean, we hold their rights, so there is no negotiation to be had until there's a contract to offer. So in terms of if there was, a work stoppage or something like that, I mean, we would still hold their rights, and then when we're back in business, right, we were able to offer a contract, so it wouldn't have an impact there.
Locked on Women's Basketball is brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need for a plumber or some other service provider. If the first person didn't answer, what'd you do? You just went on to the second person. That's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. And now OpenPhone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. By the way, if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Back here at Locked On Women's Basketball, I'm Howard Megdal, and just let's dig in real quickly, if we can, about a couple of things that Jonathan Kolb talked about in these answers. First of all, talking about the change in practice facility. It really took me back because I've covered this team a minute, as many of you know, and I remember when we were taking on a tour of the new practice facility, which is now the old practice facility. And even that in 2021 was miraculous, right? It was, oh my God, we haven't seen this in the WNBA before. And so, but it keeps going and getting bigger and bigger more and more quickly. It's been remarkable to see. And so for Jonathan to talk about that in the broader terms, it really reflects, where the WNBA is going. And there is an upward pressure. And the Liberty have certainly been a key part of that. We've seen the Minnesota Lynx have been a huge part of that as well. We've seen the Las Vegas Aces make these steps. Fascinating to see all the teams trying to top each other, because ultimately the winner in those scenarios is the player experience. So really significant and important. The question from Jackie Powell, again, I spoke about this at the 9, but for most teams, losing Courtney Vandersloot, you'd sit there and you'd say, man, how do you replace her? First ballot Hall of Famer, one of the great point guards in the history of the league. I don't think you can name 5 better. I don't think you can. You might not be able to name 1 better. I mean, that's an interesting argument for another time. But Courtney Vandersloot is with the Chicago Sky now once again. Here's the thing. What Sloot was last year in New York, and this is a very valuable thing, is somebody who could play next to Sabrina, who, as Jonathan pointed out elsewhere in our press conference, got better and better on the ball last year, but allows Sabrina to work off the ball as well. Natasha Cloud is one of the best point guards in the league. And in her prime, Courtney Vandersloot, and this is no knock on her. In fact, it's the net result of what she did in her prime. In her prime was a 45% assist percentage. I mean, in her prime, Courtney Vandersloot is as good as any point guard I've seen. Period. End of story. But at this point, as she's entering her age 36 season, and Natasha Cloud's in prime. It's hard to argue they didn't get better in that role. And in the other role, they're not relying on Cloud to have to be an off-ball shooter off the bench, which, by the way, is where Vandersloot was for the lion's share of, I shouldn't say the lion's share, the second half, certainly, and through the playoffs of 2024. Again, shout out to Courtney Vandersloot for being a team player in that way. Somebody who has accomplished what she's accomplished, didn't necessarily need to do it that way, but Leofevic comes in. What a matchup nightmare she is at both ends. A frighteningly talented player in both offensively and defensively, and gave way and did what was necessary to win a championship. But so now you think about it. All right, you don't really need to replace Leo. What you need is that shooter off the bench. Well, Maureen Johannes is a career 39.5% three-point shooter. Sloot shot 26.4% last year from 3. So in this way, it's hard to argue the Liberty haven't gotten better, which is a weird thing to say, as I wrote about at the 9, but it's true. Sonia Rahman as your assistant coach, helping to work on efficiency. We had Sonia on the program a couple weeks ago. If you haven't listened, I would urge you to go back and do it. She's fascinating. Has an amazing story. But they're continuing to keep pace with the growth of the league, if not exceeding it. That's interesting as hell to me. I mean, I'm just what they will be with another year of continuity as well. Fascinating. And then just more to the point, you lose Benijah Laney, Hamilton, and that is not an easy loss to replace. You lose Kayla Thornton, who's been on the show. I've shouted her praises how many times over the last decade. Not easy to replace, but look at how you can replace them on this roster. Rebecca Gardner's back and healthy. Kennedy Burke did a remarkable Kayla Thornton impersonation whenever she was called upon. And now she'll, instead of being the understudy, she'll be in that lead role. They've got answers to these questions and potentially better answers before you even get into the fact that there's continuity on the front end, as Jonathan said, and there's a chance for an even higher ceiling on the back end. So anyway, it's all really fascinating. I wanted to let you hear those answers and weigh in myself on it. But make sure you tune in tomorrow. The great Jackie Powell, the great Madeline Tenney, they're going to have a lot to talk about. Full on episode, all things Liberty coming to you. So until then, I am Howard Megdal for Locked On Women's Basketball, wishing all of you a wonderful Thursday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.